Hello, everybody. Welcome back. My name is Megan. I'm the mood read queen. I still feel ridiculous saying that, but whatever. I've got to get used to it. I chose the name, so such is life, right? So anyway, today's video, we are going to be talking about my top 6. I couldn't choose 5. I thought about it. My top 6 Julia Quinn novels. And everybody knows who Julia Quinn is now, I feel like, because of Bridgerton. That's how I know who she is, so I can't speak ill of it. Although I really like the show, but this is not going to turn into me talking about the show. And I have 6 books that I'm going to talk about. 2 are from the Bridgerton series, the 8-book series, 9 if you want to count the novella collection with some of the short, like the secondary epilogues, which I count because I read that at the end, like very purposefully, but anyway. And then I've got 4 from some other series. I, caveat here, have not read all her books yet. I'm about maybe like 2/3 of the way through her books so far. I've read the majority of her collections, but there's quite a few. There's a couple. Does she do standalones? Probably should have done my research. But I've got several that I still am planning on reading. I'm waiting for the historical romance bug to bite me. So I feel like it's soon. It's coming soon. I can just, hey, we're mood readers here, or maybe you're not, but you want to know what it's like. And what it's like is sometimes you just feel it come upon you. You want to read this thing. So I've been feeling the past couple weeks that it's going to be time soon to just like fall head first into historical romance pretty soon. I'm in the middle of a series right now, so not historical romance. So there's that. All right. I'm going to try to make this quick, like damning words, I know. Because I think a lot of us know about Julia Quinn. And if you don't, then hopefully this is a nice little intro to her as well. How do I want to do this? Let's just super professionally, change. There we go. Okay. So the first book we're going to talk about is, of course, the book that started it all. This is The Duke and I. And I guess it didn't really start it all. It wasn't her first book. But, of course, it is the book that was adapted into the first season of the incredibly popular Netflix show. And it is, of course, then the book that I read first. I read this series in a couple months right after the first season of the show came out. Was very obsessed with it. I'm probably going to do a definitive ranking of those books, even though I don't think anyone cares, but I already did it when I was reading them. I'm like, you know what? You don't have to think about it. You just got to do it. So anyway, this is The Duke and I, which you probably can't see super well, but, we're trying our best. We're still early in the booktuber game. So this is the story of Daphne and Simon. And I will say, if you're coming at this from the I've only watched the show perspective, I'll tell you right now, without getting too into it, the books and the show are 2 totally different things. Yes, they have some of the same characters. Yes, there's some of the same storylines. But this show is very much an ensemble piece with multiple stories ongoing. It really tries to develop the lives of the characters that are secondary characters or very minimal within the series itself, the book series. The book series is very traditional historical romance, and by that I mean each book in the series is about one couple. And though you might meet other characters and spend time with them, they really don't have any significant stuff going on. So you're not trying to keep up with multiple storylines for the most part. So just keep that in mind as I'm talking, that you're going to be like, well, what's going on with Colin and Penelope? Nothing. Because that's the 4th book. So you're not going to hear anything about it at all. Okay? Because Penelope doesn't talk to Daphne, really. Not that much. Okay. So this is about Daphne and Simon. And if you're familiar with the show, you know that essentially the plot of that first season, with many differences, is that Daphne and Simon meet the way they meet in the book is quite humorous, and I think it sets the books off from the series. The series does have humorous moments, but the book has like laugh out loud, funny, ridiculous, embarrassing moments. And they meet, Simon and Daphne meet when Simon returns to visit his... Is it Lady Danbury? Listen, it's been a minute since I've read this. And of course, now my brain is all shot through with all the stuff from the show. But he is coming home to visit. He has a bit of a dark past in terms of his relationship with his father. And he has a stutter. And it's something that he has really powered through. He deals with it so much more in this book than he does in the show. Granted, there's so much more in books that you can get internally in terms of what the characters are thinking about. And he meets Daphne at, we'll call it a party, a ball. And he's like sneaking in the kind of the back way because he doesn't want, to really be seen. All those mamas, trying to marry their daughters off. And he almost tries to assist her as she is as she's trying to escape the attentions of this super annoying guy whose name I don't remember, Nigel, I think it is. And instead she straight up punches Nigel, and Simon's like, whoa, okay. And they meet, and he's like, hey, you're one of the Bridgertons, because they all look the same. And that's another thing that you don't see as much in the show. They all have this beautiful, thick brown hair, and they're not necessarily beautiful. I mean, I say that. Of course she's beautiful. Everybody's beautiful. But she's not like the girl from the show. She's wonderful, but that's not what Daphne looks like. So Daphne meets Simon because she punches at a dude who then conks out in the middle of the floor. And they literally have a 5-minute conversation about what they're going to do with this guy. It's like, well, we could move him. Anyway, it's pretty funny. So that's how they meet. He very quickly identifies her as a Bridgerton. And they come up with the whole, like, fake dating ploy. What I love about this book, though, let's talk about that. What I love about this book, without a ton of spoilers, in case you decide to read it, because the show is quite different, though not as different as the second season is from the second book. But Simon really has a lot of stuff that he's had to deal with. Of course, treated horribly by his father, who thought that Simon was never going to be the son that he wanted, and Simon has to choose his words very carefully because of his stutter, and it's something that comes back up again if he is emotional, which he does get in the book. And there are very specific reasons as to what he's looking for, and what he's willing to give of himself and what he's not. And I wouldn't say that this is Simon, like, I wouldn't say it's equally split between Simon and Daphne in terms of development. It did feel like more Simon's book to me. Daphne is fantastic. She's funny and sweet, and she doesn't take any shit from anybody. But also, she's not the, kind of gone over love, I'm gonna get married and it's gonna be beautiful and happy. She knows that's not gonna happen. So she just wants to, she doesn't really have an agenda in terms of marriage. And so that's why the fake dating thing works so well, the fake courting. And then, again, there are a lot of beats in this that are similar to the show. But it's just a really good way to start the series. I gave it, I think, 4 stars when I read it. It's not my favorite in the series. It's one of my favorites in the series. But it was a good start to the series, and I like it a lot. So that's my first one. I don't know if that was a glowing review or not, but there we go. My second book I'm talking about is The Viscount Who Loved Me, which was made into season 2. Again, I'm going to try so hard not to talk about that. So The Viscount Who Loved Me is Anthony. I'm going to say Anthony, even though we could go Anthony or Anthony. I'm going to say Anthony it is what it is. So this is Anthony's story. And Anthony has been the head of the family since his father died. And he's getting to a point now where it's expected that he marry. And he knows what happens when you marry someone that means a lot to you. He's seen his mother and then the rest of his siblings mourn the loss of their father, and he does not want to put anybody through that. He is terrified of hurting someone and being hurt himself. He has not had any sort of broken heart syndrome going on from any previous relationships. That is something that the show tries to do, which I was not a fan of. He does have dalliances with women here and there before, like, prior at the beginning of this book. And then he decides, okay, I'm going to go find a wife. And he meets, oh gosh, Kate, but what is Edwina? So Edwina is supposed to be like this beautiful, wonderful girl. The idea of the jewel of the season, or the diamond of the season, is not in the books. There's no queen, none of that stuff. I prefer the books, to be honest with you. But Edwina is supposed to be sweet, kind. He doesn't find her too interesting necessarily, but he's trying to protect himself from, he doesn't want to be tempted to fall in love with the person that he gets married to, which I know sounds harsh, but believe me, it works out. And then he meets Kate, and Kate is Edwina's older sister. She's very protective of her, and it's pretty clear from the get-go when they meet that it's going to be about them, right? And they meet in the most ridiculous way, and that, again, the books do this so much better. So in The Duke and I, they meet after Daphne punches some dude on the ground. And in The Viscount Who Loved Me, they meet because they're at a party or something, and Kate wants to get away, and so she goes into the library and is looking around, and then she hears the door open, and she's like, oh shit, I've got to get out of here. So she hides under his desk, and there's a hilarious meme. I need to find it, and maybe I can put it in here. But where he comes in, she hears him talking to somebody. I think he's like ending things with this opera singer or something. It's not that important. And then he sits at his desk, and she's like, oh, I'm done for. Like, this is terrible. And that's how they meet the first time. I believe they kiss in that library. And then he finds out that she is the older sister of Edwina, this girl that he thinks he's going to pursue. They just have this beautiful, witty repartee, that like banter, sarcasm going on, because she hasn't figured out, and he has her figured out. And it's just fantastic. I can't say enough good things about this book. I feel bad because I talked forever about the first one, but I had a lot to say in terms of the show. But I think there's a lot to be said about being afraid and not wanting to hurt someone else, or not wanting to be hurt, and thinking that you're protecting yourself by picking someone who maybe holds less of a temptation for you. And ultimately, he and Kate have so much in common. They're both afraid of certain things. And one aspect of the show that was not in this, one aspect of the show that they didn't, oh my gosh, rewind. One aspect of the book that I really missed in the show is their burgeoning friendship, because he's, taking Edwina out on walks, but Kate is coming. They are invited to a house party, and he finds Kate in the library one night because she can't sleep because she's deathly afraid of storms, and no one knows this about her because she wants to be strong and she doesn't want people to know. And she doesn't know the root of why that is. And later you find out how that's connected to her mother's death when she was younger, obviously before her father married her stepmother and then Edwina's mother. And the way that he comforts her is just amazing. And then the book, in the middle, something happens. Something happens in the middle, and he finds himself falling in love with her against his will, and he has to decide what he's going to do about it. And it's really, really good. And the Pall Mall scene, of course, is so good. So good, and it's better than the show. Sorry, better than the show. Okay, so then the next one I'm going to talk about is, this is in the Smythe Smith Quartet. It's called The Sum of All Kisses, and it is, I think, the third one in that series. So just to kind of give you the lay of the land in terms of her books that I've read so far. So you have the Bridgerton series. All of Julia Quinn's books take place in the same general universe. So you can be reading a book in a different series that might feature a cameo from Colin Bridgerton, for example. Or you might be reading one of the Bridgerton books and a character from one of her other series might show up. Sometimes there's more crossover, sometimes there's less. So she wrote the Smythe Smith Quartet because people were asking her what, I think this is the story. There was general interest in who the Smythe Smith Quartet is. And the Smythe Smith Quartet, there are 4 girls. It's always rotating. And they are the Smythe Smith siblings and cousins, all female. And they play an annual musicale that is atrocious. And they talk about that extensively in the Bridgerton books. Everybody goes, but they hate it. And they can just tell that everybody is miserable. And how do these girls even think that they're doing a good job? And it's so fun. And so she uses these books to explore what the Smythe Smith Quartet is. And I really enjoyed the whole Smythe Smith Quartet series, but this was my absolute favorite, and honestly might beat out the Viscount Who Loved Me in terms of my favorite Julia Quinn book so far. But this book is about Sarah and then Hugh. And it's a little bit of background. So Hugh, his best friend was Daniel. And Daniel was a Smythe Smith. And many years ago, maybe like 5 or 6, he was drunk. He and Daniel were gambling, playing cards. And Hugh ends up challenging Daniel to a duel. And he just isn't thinking about it. And he ends up shooting Daniel in the shoulder. Daniel's fine. And Hugh gets shot in the leg. And almost loses his life and his leg. And may be permanently disabled as a result. And so Hugh's father takes this altercation very seriously, even though Hugh's like, hey, it was my fault. And he runs Daniel out of town, threatens him. And Daniel is, for 3 years, I think, he's abroad. And sort of fearing for his life. And Daniel comes back in the first book, meets a woman, they get married, it's super cute. And he and Hugh make up because Hugh goes to find him. And he's like, hey, I've been trying for years to get my dad off your back. I think it's okay now. I'm so sorry. Can you come back home? So they're friends again. Like, it's okay. And Hugh, even though he knows they're at peace with it, that Daniel is accepting of him and, that he wants to be friends again, Hugh will also never forgive himself for not physically injuring Daniel, but for depriving Daniel's family of his presence for 3 years, for making him terrified of his life, for affecting his entire family. And Hugh feels an immense amount of guilt about that. And so, anyway, Daniel's getting married. And I think another character's getting married too, but whatever. And so Hugh's been invited, and he feels a little bit weird about it, but like he knows that Daniel wants him there, and so he's going to be there. And so Sarah is Daniel's cousin, and she is pissed still that Hugh totally fucked up Daniel's life. Okay, like she is mad about it, and Hugh can tell. And Daniel has asked her to kind of keep an eye on Hugh during the festivities, keep him company, because Hugh gets tired pretty easily. He kept his leg. He had to have extensive surgery on it. The bone was broken, and he has a cane, and he has chronic pain. And he is in pain a lot of the time, and it's not good. And he also isn't sure if he is going to be able to reproduce. The reason why his father was so angry about his life possibly being in danger is that Hugh's brother, and they don't talk about it extensively in the book, but Hugh's brother is gay, and both he and his father know that, like, he's never gonna have an heir. And so it really puts all the pressure on Hugh. And again, that's why his father was so worried. He wasn't worried for him. His father's crazy, like absolute bonkers. So anyway, this story is about Hugh and Sarah and them having to spend all this time together. There are 2 weddings that they're going to together, I believe. And it's like a wedding festivity, like couple weeks. I don't really know. And like house parties basically also. And so they end up spending all this time together and talking. And of course they have the banter, right? But she's realizing pretty quickly that he isn't that bad of a guy. In fact, he might be torturing himself more than anybody would have tortured him in terms of his own actions. And Hugh is struggling because he really likes her. And he has a very like mathematical brain. I wouldn't say he's on the spectrum, although some might. But he can't convince himself to try with her because he's not sure he's like a full man, whatever that means, right? Ridiculous. But there's a scene where she trips and falls, and he tries to catch her, and they fall together because he can't physically save her, and he feels emasculated because of that. And it's just such a good book. Really, really well done. Kind of perceived enemies to lovers, although not quite. And it's just really good. And again, that's from the Smythe Smith series. Okay, so there's that book. Then we've got What Happens in London. Ooh, you cannot see that at all. Let's go over here. Super professional. Okay, so this is What Happens in London. I forget what series that this is from. I'll be honest, but it is a 3-book series. And this book, I loved it. There's just so many good things about it. It is a quiet book. And by that I mean that you don't have to worry about a lot when you're reading this. And a lot of historical romances you don't, right? But the characters are so fun and so unique. And so we have got Olivia Bevelstoke and then Sir Harry Valentine. I'm sorry, his last name is Valentine. It's whatever. And Harry comes from money, but in sort of support of his cousin. I can't remember his cousin's name right now. At a young age, they both go into the military together. And Henry is excellent with Harry's excellent with languages, and he works for the War Office. And after he kind of did all his other soldiering, I guess, and he moves in like across the street or like maybe next door to the Bevelstokes, and immediately Olivia is super interested in him because she's heard rumors that he killed his wife or his fiance or something, right? And she's super intrigued, and she's a busybody, and it's honestly adorable. And so she starts low-key spying on him, and she's not good at it. Like, she'll be chilling in her house, like, peeking through the blinds. And so they end up meeting for real in person not long after she started spying on him. And she learns pretty quickly that he knew that she was watching. And he may or may not have done visually suspicious things while she was watching because he wanted to freak her out. And so the story really is them like getting to know each other and spending time together, and they talk through their windows. It's so cute. It's so cute. There's a little bit of a plot line where there's a guy who might be interested in Olivia. She's not interested in him, but he might be a spy. And I think there's like in the third act, I think there's like some sort of ridiculous. Yeah, I think there's some sort of ridiculous, like, she might be kidnapped. Oh gosh, we must save her thing. I forgot that happened. But it's really good because they just have great chemistry together. They know immediately that they like each other. And of course, he keeps the secret that he works for the War Office, and that might cause a few bumps along the way. But they're just precious together, and they have to be, because his name is Harry. Okay, well, I guess Harry Styles, right? We all love Harry, but I'm not a huge fan of that name, and this made me like super excited. So, this is the first book in the series is okay, and the third book is not that good. It was the lowest I think I ever gave a Julia Quinn. So, but this book is super good. So that's what happens in London. So then the next book, I actually have to, I'll pull it up over here, because I forgot. Okay, so there's another book from the Bridgerton series that I'm going to talk about. And this is probably one that doesn't come up very often, I'll be honest. When I read it, I immediately knew that I loved it. But I don't think it's one that people talk about as their favorite very often. And that is It's in His Kiss. This is the 7th book. And the 8th book is actual garbage trash. Sorry. I know a lot of people try to do like only positive language, when they're talking in book 2. But like, that's not a good book. It's not good. But It's in His Kiss was so good. So let's talk about what it's about. It's about Hyacinth, who is the youngest. I believe she's the youngest. The last 2 books go out of order, just like the first 2 books. Because they start with Daphne, but Daphne's not the oldest. And then they switch at the end, because Gregory is, I believe, no, Hyacinth is the youngest. So, Hyacinth. She is everything you ever wanted in a book heroine. She, if you like first season Eloise, that's Hyacinth. So when I watched the show, I loved it. And then I still like the show quite a bit. But then I read the books, and I got to Eloise's book, which is To Sir Philip with Love. And I was like, who is this character? Because that's not Eloise. Like, Eloise in the book is very different. But Hyacinth, if you love Eloise from the first season of the show, I'm not a huge fan of her in the second season, I'll be honest. But that's Hyacinth's character. She is just sort of like a minx, honestly. Like, she hasn't gotten married yet. She doesn't really need to worry about it. She has a great personality. I think is Italian. I think it's Italian. That she kind of speaks and can translate, but like not really. And that's a part of this. She sort of buddies with Lady Danbury, and that's how she meets Gareth. Gareth is, I think, Lady Danbury's like nephew or great nephew or something. And he did have, I'm checking my Goodreads review as I'm doing this, and my one line says, I could have done without descriptions of his hair, which I did not find attractive. That's so funny, because he had a ponytail, forgot about that. And I was like, Gareth, no, cut it off, which is terrible. But anyway, Gareth, he's been very wary, in terms of like finding a wife, because he's a bastard child. And his mother, I think it was Italian. I could be totally wrong, and she was Spanish. I'm so sorry if that's the case. But he likes Hyacinth, and Lady Danbury is trying to like get them together. And so basically what happens in this book is hijinks. Hyacinth starts translating a diary for him that he found of his mother's, because he thinks maybe it will tell him about her more than he remembers and her family. And they break into his father's house. She's wearing pants at one point, and he about has a heart attack. They just have fun together, and they know they like each other. And there's like this parentage thing that Gareth is worried about. And then Hyacinth, of course, could not care less about any of that stuff. Because of course she's a Bridgerton, and they married all over the place. Um, so I got to read a line from my Goodreads review because it cracks me up. So it says, a mysterious parentage? Check. Breaking into your father's house to look for lost jewels? Check. Coming face to face with the breeches wearing behind of your future wife? Check. And it's so good. There's like making out in a closet. Oh gosh, we're going to get captured. So good. I don't know what else to say about it. It is a great book. And I wish more people talked about this book because it was just fun. It was just fun. And it was interesting. And definitely better than book 8. But in my opinion, like my top 3, like in my top 3 for the Bridgerton series. So it's in His Kiss. And then the next book, the last book that I'm going to talk about, is the first book in the Rokesby's series. So that will be now, 4 series I will have talked about. So the Rokesby's series is a prequel series for the Bridgerton books. So they're about like the aunts and uncles of the Bridgerton children that are in that main 8-book series. And I picked the first one because I just recently talked about another book in that series, the other Miss Bridgerton, in a different video. So because of Miss Bridgerton is the first one in the series, and it is also kind of a quiet book, but I said that last time, and then I forgot that there was a whole spy, she was kidnapped thing. But it's just a sweet, perceived enemies to lovers we've known each other our whole lives. It's about Billie Bridgerton. She is the oldest sibling in the Bridgertons. I believe she is. But she won't inherit. But she's basically like, she is a tomboy. She's grown up helping her father around with everything, running the estate. She basically does it right now anyway. And she's not like someone's perfect wife. And so I should probably switch hands here because it's going to be over there, isn't it? And then that's about is it Edward? Yeah. No, George. Gosh. There's a bunch of Rokesby's brothers, and George is the oldest. And George is like the most serious one. She doesn't think he's any fun. They grew up, just a couple miles apart, their families, and everybody grew up together. And everyone thinks that she's going to marry one of the other 2 brothers, Edward or Andrew. Andrew is in, actually, I think they all have books. Yeah, whatever. It's been a minute. So anyway, she thinks she doesn't really like George. And then she hears a cat in a tree at the beginning of the book, and she goes to get it, and she can. So she falls out of the tree onto the roof of this rando building. And so she's like, I think she's injured her ankle. She sprained her ankle. And so she's just sitting there waiting for someone to walk by. And George happens to walk by. And she's like, oh, Jesus, no, not George. Anybody but George. And he was gone for a while now. He's coming back home. And settle down, find a wife, whatever. And so he goes to help her. He finds a ladder. And then the ladder falls. And anyway, so they're stranded up there together, bickering. And they actually have fun. And then they are eventually saved, I think, by his younger brother, Andrew, who's home temporarily from the Navy. And the story really is about them reconnecting because he's been gone for quite a while. And she's been focused on helping her father. And eventually, her younger brother is going to be the one who inherits everything. But she finds an immense purpose in what she does. And she knows all of these things that he doesn't know, that George doesn't know about running a house necessarily in an estate. And anyway, it's just super fresh and so cute. And I loved it. And I think there's a scene, I'm trying to remember. I think it's the wrong book that I'm thinking about. Because there's definitely a book where somebody like digs a hole and gets their ankle stuck so they can like be saved by someone. And I can't remember if that was Billy or not, but it's so good. And of course their families are intertwined anyway because they live so close to each other. and it's just cute to see. It's cute to see what happened before the Bridgerton series, and feeling like that's a bit more grounded. So those are all the books. I think that was 6. Those are my favorite books from Julia Quinn. And if you have a favorite, let me know. I'd love to hear about it. You know, if you have a favorite in the Bridgerton series, have you read any other books from her other series? Do you have a favorite that is not in any of the series I talked about today? Because I haven't read all her books yet. So, yeah, it's a little bit about Julia Quinn. And I hope that you enjoyed it. And I'll see you next time. Bye.